And welcome back to Rebound with Resilience, a podcast dedicated to upgrade your mindset, raise your resilience, and improve your mental wellness. And on this episode, we have our first ever guest with us today. Again, her name is Ray. She's someone with an amazing voice, amazing personality, which she uses to spread joy and inspiration to everyone around her. Alright, and she's also a very good pal of mine, in her words. Who says pal anymore, Ray?
Yes,
The last time I heard the
I
word
use pal.
the last
I
time I
use
heard
the
it
word
was in
pal
my
and
primary
mate a
school
lot.
textbook. My pals are here.
Oh,
Anyway, yeah, my pal is here, Ray. And yes, just a quick introduction of her. She's a fresh communications graduate from NTU, and she's an entrepreneur, a professional MC for 7 years, and transitioning into being a communications coach, where she coaches people to own their voice and communicate powerfully and persuasively. So, Ray, do you want to say hello and add on to that?
sure. Hello, guys. I feel like Kevin has already said my introduction really well with a lot of energy and zest. But yeah, so everything that Kevin said, actually, I think later I'll share a little bit more about like why I started this journey, how I even went into emceeing in the first place. But yeah, I've been emceeing for 7 years. I am going to, I'm starting to do communications coaching as well. And I do train in schools as well, just like what Kevin is doing.
Um, but yes, I think today's topic, right, we're gonna extract as much value as we can from you, if you don't mind. We're gonna explore about your journey in overcoming insecurity and how that translated to what you do now, how that translates to you owning your voice and communicating without fear. I think this is something that a lot of our listeners want to hear about. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
right. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's get straight into it. So maybe let's talk about insecurity first, lah. What is insecurity exactly? Because this word is a big word, right? But if you were to define insecurity, what does it mean?
Um, Insecurity to me, because there's so many different types of insecurity, as you said. Some people are
Hmm.
insecure about their looks, their skill, they're insecure about their weight, like
Hmm.
anything can be a source of insecurity for a person. So insecurity to me is allowing what people think of you or what you think people think of you to affect how you think of yourself. And I think that really stems, I mean, by personal experience, right? Because I don't want to say it as a sweeping statement because I'm
Sure.
sure insecurity is such a huge thing that different people might have different root causes here and there. And you don't want to
Hmm.
go, so deeply into it because you can go like way back into your
Right.
life. For me, I realized that insecurity stems from not having a clear idea of what my identity is.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
when that happens, then
You're
I
shaped
use
by
what other people say
yeah.
to start to craft like my identity. You realize that.
We're definitely going to that, but I want to touch on a little bit about what you said earlier. Right, it's not about what we think of ourselves; it's what we think others are thinking about us. Right? And that's one
Mm,
definition of self-esteem, what we think others are thinking about us. And the way I see
yeah.
insecurity, right, if you don't mind if I just add on to it, right,
Yeah, sure.
it's it's like an area where you feel that you're lacking. For whatever reason you feel like you're insecure about it. There's a root word of insecurity, right? You're insecure about
Yeah.
something. You feel that you're lacking in something. You can't match up to someone or somebody, And to me, right, it's like carrying a huge mirror around with you. Every time you speak to someone, it's almost like you're facing a mirror that no one can see except you. And you are looking at the mirror all the time, right? It affects the way you communicate, it affects your confidence, and it really drags you down. So
Mm, mm, mm.
we definitely, I think a lot of people face this, and we definitely want to go deep dive into this topic today, lah. All right. So just share with me a
Yeah.
little bit of your journey, right? Like, your journey in what were the insecurities you had growing up and where did it stem from?
Sure. Um, I think I shared a little bit about insecurities in my first ever podcast
Always
about
promoting your
insecurity.
stuff? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, but yeah, so yeah, I shared a little bit more about it then. I did say that what I am insecure about actually changed and differed throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I realized that it is usually something that I place of high importance,
Right.
right? So of course uh of course when I was younger, to me, when you're young, you're just studying. You remember in primary school, you don't really think about like what you want to do in life,
Right.
right? You're just studying, you go home, you play, that's about it. So when I was younger in primary school and secondary school, my main source of insecurity is the way I look.
Where
And I
looks.
think that is something that
Mm.
everybody relates to. I'm sure at any point of your life, at least once, you have that insecurity. So then that was the biggest insecurity of mine. Now, of course, I didn't really use social media much back then because I only got my phone at like Sec 2.
Right.
But,
Then there was no social media, right?
but
Back then, what do we have?
yeah,
Friendster?
not much. Right. I only
Okay.
remember playing Sims on my
Okay.
Samsung
Oh, you
flip
played
phone.
Sims. Okay, I was a
Yeah.
good
Oh,
kid,
Sony
never game.
Ericsson. Sorry, Sony Ericsson was
The
the
Walkman.
the best phone then. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
It
used
was
to
very cool. It
blast
was a
music out loud, right? And then we thought they were cool. Times have changed.
yeah. So I think that I saw a lot of like friends around me, especially because I was from a girls' school in primary school. Like to me, everybody was just like more pretty, and I wasn't. I think I was more insecure about like my eyelids being single eyelids. So I was actually born with
Hmm.
single eyelids, and then
Okay.
having pimples and all that. I used to be a huge fan of Wizards of Waverly Place. It's a show where Selena Gomez is inside, and when you watch these American, shows, all of them look perfect, right? With the
Yeah,
help
of
of
course.
editing and makeup and everything. So I wanted to be like them, lah, right? So I saw a lot of these people as like people I wanted to be like, and I just wished that I was look like that at that age.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the huge part of it, I would say. Um, and then moving towards
Secondary,
JC period.
JC, yeah.
Yeah, secondary school, primary school and secondary school kind of like fuse together a little bit. When you're young, you just forget what happened. Um, yeah. Um, Let me think. So JC period, I was still having that insecurity about my looks. But
Okay.
of course, JC is when you slowly go through puberty and
Hmm.
then your body starts to change. You look a little bit prettier here and there. I mean, definitely puberty strikes at that point of time. And I realized that a huge part of my insecurity really, really leverages on how people thought of me.
Hmm.
So I knew that at a point of time I never had a boyfriend before, you see.
Okay.
So I just thought that, hey, like everybody started, so many people are getting attached in junior
Sure.
college. And every single time, in any conversation, back then when you are stressed and during A levels, you just talk
Uh-huh.
about, apart from talking about studies,
Gossipy
you talk
stuff.
about like guys,
Yeah.
girls,
Wish
and
I could
then
relate.
there'll always be the, oh, this guy is cute, that guy is, oh, you talk
Hmm.
about this couple and that couple. So
Hmm.
of course I wanted to be like in a relationship because I thought that it
Right.
would be cool. Yeah, and I think it's really funny because I wanted to be in a relationship because I thought that, hey, it's nice to have someone you can watch a movie with. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny. As if it's not any other, as if it's not work, right? A relationship to me, it's just,
Sure.
hey, I have a pal to watch like movies with, and we can hold hands in the movies. Like
Yeah. So it wasn't
literally, there was
serious, like it wasn't like you thought about the future or you want to spend a life with this person.
no,
It was just a simple reason. And you
no.
didn't think
I
it would affect your grades, whatever. You just decided that, okay, I'm going to get a boyfriend. You pluck somebody out.
no, I didn't plug somebody out. The guy chased me. Okay,
Sure.
yeah, the guy chased me. But when I said yes to, okay, the funny thing is that he asked me to be his girlfriend on our very first date.
Mm. Okay,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
which is so ridiculous. And
You must
to
have
me,
quite
I
a
didn't
charm.
really know him.
That's why he fell in love with
I
you.
don't know him. The thing is, I didn't know him very well. But
Okay.
in my head, right, you see, I was wanting the attention, you see.
Okay.
Like, I wanted the love, I wanted the attention, I wanted someone to tell me I was pretty.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's primarily the reason.
So
Yeah,
that,
honestly.
right. So that, can I say that that was a void, right? Because of your insecurity, there was a void that wanted to be filled now. So you try to fill
Mm.
that void in a particular way, and the attention that compliments someone to tell you that you look good is something that fills that void.
Yeah, definitely. Because in secondary school, especially, a lot of my closest friends are the prettiest girls, quote unquote. And they're the ones that always get talked about by the guys and they'll be attached and the guy like after PE lesson will give like drink to her, that kind. And then in my head it's like, wow, it's so nice, right? To have someone
Sure.
do that for you. Yeah, so that thought carried on.
Right.
Even though in JC, the friends around me are not people. I mean, we all become a little bit more. Become more mature in JC, and you start thinking more about studies and your career. But that still lingered on. You see, that insecurity of mine still lingered on. That wanting to have that attention from someone, to
Sure.
know that I'm good enough,
Right.
to know that I'm pretty enough, to know that yeah. So that really
Was it just looks, appearances? Was it your ability?
sure. I think that at that point of time it was more for looks lah.
Okay.
Yeah. More looks, because I didn't really think much about my career at that point of time. So nothing else, not much was on my priority list.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do exceptionally well in JC in terms of academics, but that didn't make me insecure. I just work harder, right? I mean, it's something you can change, you see. But looks is something that I think I thought I can't change, right?
Okay.
Like there's no solution in that sense.
Okay.
Whereas for academics, you just study harder, you find the teachers to teach you, and you go for remedial lessons and things like that. So looks has always been the insecurity, wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of a gang, part of a crowd, wanting to, yeah, just have someone that accept me. So in my head, right, even though in JC I actually had acceptance from my friends, like honestly, JC was the best time, like best and worst time. Academics wise, it was really, really stressful. Literally, there were days that I would, like during recess, I would just sleep in class or not go for recess because I was super tired, and I lost like 7 kg in the year, that kind of thing.
Right.
But it was best because the friends that I made, like my class of 20 people, they were so closely knitted together. I never felt like I was out of place at all. Actually, I had the best friends in JC. They were all like, we really had the class spirit because we were from arts class, right? So we're all having the class spirit. And you know, a month ago, during COVID period, we were having like Zoom sessions, like reminiscing the past and
Oh,
things
really?
like that. So my friends were great in JC, but I think there was always this yearning for something more. And also because I've never had a boyfriend, so it's something that is very new and exciting for me. I don't know what the challenges are. Like in my head, being in a relationship seems perfect, you see, right? And it was really, really like going back to insecurity. The main reason was because I felt that the reason why I didn't get a boyfriend was because of my looks, like back in secondary school. So it was always linked.
Sure.
Of course, now I know it's not true, right? Like wanting to have a boyfriend or not is really a choice, and it's a matter of like having similar values and similar goals. But back then it was just pretty people get boyfriends, full stop. Like that's literally the thought in my head, because that's what you see in movies. That's what, like, you know, the pretty girl always gets the guy. The guy.
So what was the
But I mean, that's what you
consequence? Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Ray. So what was the consequence of that on your insecurity as you started to after JC, and do you stay with him or what happened after that?
I'm just going to give a two-liner about it lah. Right. So ultimately, then I think he was also having certain blocks. So it went really badly for the last year because it was our A-level year, and he was good. I think he had to deal with some, like everybody has their own things to do. So he had to deal with certain things in his life and things like that. So it went down quite badly, and we broke up after prom. He didn't even go for prom, so we broke up after prom. And he's very happy now. So I'm actually very happy for him. He retook a year, and then he got like I think straight A's with one B or something. And then he has a girlfriend now that making him very happy. So he's actually a very brilliant guy. Anyways, so after I graduated from JC, I got into clubbing, right? So I started going to clubs, you see. And what actually hooked me on to a club was because I you dress, how you dress to a club, you go to a club, you look nice, you look good, and then like guys would come to me and they will ask me to buy me a drink, they want to dance with me, and that fed my insecurity a lot. Like it's like giving sweets to like a kid who
Right, you
loves
blew it
attention.
up big time, right? You just
Yeah,
constant
it's like
attention.
Yeah, the kid hasn't had sweets in like months, and then you just give him sweets and just like, oh, sweets. Yeah,
Okay.
right. But then after that, you realize there's bad for you because there's consequences, and then you have
Mm,
huge withdrawals if you stop eating sweets for a while. Or
mm,
I think it's like smoking. It's like smoking a cigarette. Like
okay.
once you stop, you have a you have withdrawal symptoms, right? So it's the same. So obviously the guys in the club, they're not really looking for anything serious. They kind of just want to have fun and things like
Yeah.
that. So I started thinking like, hey, like why, like what's happening? Am I just worthy for my looks? Am I not worthy for like
Mm,
who I am? Things like that. So it actually made it much worse, you see.
mm,
Yeah, yeah. I think it left me in about like half a year of just like um upset with myself, and then like I would escape back in the club, and I would just treat the club as a form of a way for me to escape.
sure.
Right. It's kind of like to go in and get the shot of like,
Mm.
oh, like love and affirmation, and then the next morning when you wake up you realize that it was all a dream.
Right. So it was not
Something like
lasting like in that sense, right? If you build your
yeah,
self-esteem
definitely.
on that, it's just you keep going back. That keeps you going back, and having those compliments and having guys telling you that, you're amazing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
I
but
know.
what
I
was the
know
right?
it's true lah, of course. I mean I am an insecure.
Sure. But I
But
guess I guess you wanted something more, lah, right? And like you were mentioning, like, what was the
mm,
consequence of that? Was there any low point or any point where you just sat down and said that, man, I need to, work on some stuff?
you see, right? Ultimately, the root cause of the problem is it has nothing to do with the guys or the club or anything like that. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do with anybody around me actually,
Sure.
right? Because I chose to be in those situations.
Hmm.
The main issue is because I wasn't sure of who I am. Like, I don't know who Ray is.
Right.
Like I don't know who's Ray. So once I get acceptance because of how I look, then in my mind, okay, Ray is someone that clubs and gets guys' attention in the club. Like that's my identity.
Mm.
Because I don't know what's my identity, right? So that became my identity. And when I found like I was lost in that and I didn't get what I want from that, then my identity got shaken. Then I'm like, who I am now? Who am I
Mm.
now? Right?
Okay.
Because I have nothing to leverage on. Like I don't know what my identity was.
Mm.
So I always say this like not knowing your identity is very scary lah. Okay, I mean personally that is something that scares me the most because you realize that you let other people tell you who you are,
Sure. You let others
and
define who you are and your worth, right?
very
Mm.
dangerous if your emotions and your worth is linked or is affected by what other people think or say. You're in
Mm.
a very dangerous position because people
Sure.
are very unpredictable. They can think one thing this day and the next day they think something else,
Right.
right?
And that breeds insecurity. That breeds insecurity, right? Because
Yeah,
it's you're always thinking about what other people think and what other people say, and your life revolves around that. You don't have any respite from it. You don't control your own identity. You don't, like you said, know who you are. Um, so,
yeah, exactly.
right? But how do you?
And yeah, so and I also said this like in my recent. I mean, I know I keep talking about myself. I'm sorry, but I did talk about this in my one of my recent Instagram posts, which is that when I entered uni as well,
Mm,
like I wanted to be part of a gang. I wanted to be part of a group. I wanted to be part of the culture of the school, and so I would um arrange my schedule around like people in that sense. Like I want to stay late in school just in case I get invited to like a supper where only
mm,
like people would go.
yeah,
Like I just always want to be part of things so
sure,
that I would get that attention.
makes
I would
sense.
say just that affirmation and the validation. And
Okay.
literally like my schedule was determined by those things. Like I'll not know if I want to go back to hall or to sleep or to
Mm,
just stay. So when you are not sure of where you're going or what you want or what your identity is, then you start being really ruled by what people say and think and do lah.
right. I mean, an analogy would be like you're in a boat and you were like a sailor, but you can't control your sail, right? So you're just kind of wherever the wind blows, you go. And the
Perfect
identity,
analogy. Wow.
right? And the
Okay.
identity is like a sail. It's something that you control. So the question is, right? I mean, a lot of listeners also perhaps relate to you. But what was the process for you? What were the factors that led you to kind of form your identity? and kind of be more grounded in that.
Wow.
Mentorship,
That's a very
personal
good
development,
question.
right? Because I know you very well, like
Sure.
you
I
started
know.
mentorship and everything.
I'm just trying to think back to like when it first started, So
You met me. Just kidding.
yeah, okay. Anyways, I don't want to be so chim now. Like, okay, like, talk about definitely mentorship, going to personal development, but those are very big steps, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I start with like the smaller steps first, which is being open to opportunities when I was much younger. Okay. So when I was much younger, I went into emceeing at a very young age, like when I was 16 years old, started emceeing at 16.
Mm.
So that was kind of how I found like I found that I get really energized around people. I love being around people. I love hosting events. I love being in the spotlight. I love being able to go for different events that I wouldn't be able to go to if I wasn't hosting it. Like your
Mm-hmm.
OCS commissioning balls, or like hosting a 6 weekend long whiskey festival and tasting $1,000 whiskeys,
Mm-hmm.
or like going for a company D&D and hosting a company D&D with like the employees are like 50, like
Yep.
40 over year engineers. So those are the events I love to go to. I love meeting new people. I love just interacting with people. So I started sort of like forming my identity over emceeing as well. So that became part of my identity,
Mm.
right? Of course, later I'll talk a little bit about how you shouldn't leverage your whole being on
Identity
a
is
single
one.
form of
Yeah.
identity, because
Okay.
that's dangerous. But that was a start, you see, right? Being able to speak to people well, being able to
Mm.
communicate well, being
Sure.
able to be around people and spread positive vibes and energy. So that slowly became my identity in that sense.
Right.
And it made me stop thinking so much about like how I look and things like that, right?
Mm.
Yeah, because that
Focusing on like
slowly,
what you're good at, right? Like focusing on
yeah,
something
and
that you
also,
can. Yeah.
sure, and also because then emceeing and working on my craft became more important to me than worrying about like my looks, right?
Yep.
In that sense. Yeah, because it also, like, older you go, you realize that people care more about the value that you give more than your looks. Honestly, like,
Sure.
right? Honestly, it's about what you can give to others, how you can help others.
But got it.
It's-
But in that
yeah,
sense, also there lies a potential drawback. I mean, we discussed this before as well, right? Like, if you just pride it on that alone, what if that you don't do well in that particular arena? Or do you start comparing yourself with other MCs who perhaps look, by society standards look maybe more attractive and stuff like that? And then does that weigh on you as well in that sense?
right. Yeah. So the thing is, when you like, that's why I think is identity is such a huge thing. It's so complicated. You never want to just only look at one area of your life.
Mm,
There's so many areas of your life, right? I mean, there's family, there's your
yeah.
health, there is like your emotional life, your mental wellness, and all that. There's so many areas of your life. You want to make sure that you pay attention to all areas and not just that one thing,
Mm,
right? Yeah. So that is something that has helped me tremendously. And of course, I was only able to understand the concept of looking at different areas of your life,
related.
yeah, like through mentorship and through personal development, through attending online webinars, through knowing of like Mind Valley, and then like Napoleon Hill, like a lot of these huge names that a lot of that my business mentors actually recommended to me.
Mm,
Um, those really really opened my eyes to a different perspective. You see, because
mm,
I was brought up thinking that, right, life is really just about working for money
mm,
and like having kids, providing for your family, then working in
sure.
a job and then you die after that. Like, that really is what I thought of life to be. And sometimes, of course, I just think like that was really the point of life, right? Like it's sort of like just going through this cycle and that's it. So that was the perspective that I had. Not because
Mm,
my parents were harsh on me. Actually, my parents are the loveliest people. They never really imposed things on me. But
mm-hmm,
when you're a child, you see how your parents live, you see how society live, and you follow. And that
sure.
is your normal.
Okay.
So only in like university year two or so, early year two, did I really open my eyes to the world of entrepreneurship and personal development. And
Okay.
I know that these words are so overused nowadays, but these
How
things
did that
honestly have
impact you?
saved me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that impact you? If you could describe that shift in perspective, right, and the impact on your identity,
Mm.
how would you, share?
Oh my goodness. So many things. I mean, firstly, number one, right? Um, one thing that bothered me so much in the past was
Hmm.
how
Perceived.
I was quite controlled by my parents, lah,
Hmm.
actually, honestly. Like, now I don't think about it much because they have completely, oh my, now I don't think about it so much because my relationship, my parents changed
Hmm.
a lot, tremendously. But back then, in year one, I mean, they were still very focused on academics only. Like, they still push me here and there. They're not the kind that force, but they sort of like talk until you get it in your head. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And even when I started my entrepreneurship journey, sometimes I go for meetings, sometimes I go for MC events, they go quite late at night. And at 10 p.m., I will see their call just calling, why you're not back, why you're not back yet. And they were very happy about me doing anything apart from
Studies.
studies lah, apart from
Hmm.
studies. Okay? And it was a very tough relationship. I mean, personally for me, because like I didn't like to have I just felt very kept in a cage. Like I couldn't run my own life. And I felt like I was indebted in that sense. I
Sure.
don't like to use the word indebted. I was more of
Hmm.
just, it's like my mechanism, it's like my auto mechanism to always check with my parents and not make my
Hmm.
own decision.
Okay.
Yeah. So, one thing that really changed my life is actually something that you told me,
Hmm.
right? Because I mean, we really knew each other back then, and there was once was supposed to go for this conference overseas, and I didn't even ask my parents if I could go because I knew they're gonna say no, and I didn't want to even have that conversation with them.
Hmm.
So I just, didn't even bother to get the ticket or anything. And
Sure.
I was just talking to you, and you remember this, right? Right? You remember you told me,
I'll try and remember. Go
there's a
ahead.
time you can't remember? Okay.
Go ahead.
You you told me that in anything that I do, if I want like something, I have to communicate it with my parents like an
Mm.
entrepreneur.
Right.
Oh my goodness, like that experience changed my life because I
Wow.
think the next few days I
Mm.
actually sat my parents down and I spoke to them. And
Right.
then I told them what I wanted to do in life. I told them a little bit of my dreams and goals. I told them that I wasn't 100% certain, but I'm getting there. And I asked them what their concerns were. Right? And they listed to me their concerns like, oh, you're going home late at night. I don't really like
Mm.
that. Oh, no, I'm afraid of the studies. And then I addressed every one of them. So, for example, going home late at night, then I'll
Right.
say, no, and this is true. I'll be like, when I'm going home, I'll share a cat, and I'll share a cat with like some,
Mm.
ladies that were at the same meeting with. Um, and for grades, I told them that I'll do my best to maintain a certain grade level.
Mm.
Right. So, of course, that one conversation didn't change everything,
It's
but
process,
if that
right?
one
Mm.
conversation uh, follow up by my consistent actions
Mm.
of me, number one, communicating with them. So at 10 p.m. I'll send them a text. I still send them a text if I'm out late at night. I don't think it's like, I think it's respectful that you just tell your parents where you are. I
Sure.
don't see it as like they're controlling me, but they just want to know where you are. I mean, so that you're
Right.
not like lost or anything, right? And then that was just like a 2-year journey of my parents slowly easing up, me
Right.
being very hard on, and then right now, I mean, amazing relationship with them. I mean, even right now when I just graduated and traineeship positions are coming up, right? Right, because jobs are hard to get, things like that. I would think that many parents of graduates will immediately tell their
Okay.
kids,
Yeah.
just go and apply. Okay. My dad, he just asked me like, it depends what you want, right?
Mm.
If you want to run your own business and do your coaching business, then are you going to give yourself a timeline? So it becomes a discussion, right? And he's the kind that, okay, you decide and then you just go ahead with that decision, don't think back.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that that support of my parents is was huge, really huge for me because I'm very close to my parents. I love my parents. I love my family a lot, and I didn't ever want them to be an obstacle, or I don't want to ever choose between one or the other.
Sure.
And I'm so happy that I managed to find like a middle ground. So I think that was a huge
Factor in,
aspect.
right? Can I
Yeah.
just add on to that? Because I find it really fascinating. See, a lot of people, right? I think one issue with entrepreneurship and maybe doing your own thing, let's not even talk about entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is a big thing. For a lot of you guys, you just might be taking a CCA. It might just be taking a different course that you have different perspectives to your parents, right? And the process by which you confront it, right? The process by which you sit down and have an honest conversation with your parents, that in itself builds your self-image. That in
Mm.
itself helps you to be, works on your insecurities as well. Because like you mentioned, it comes as the whole package, right? Slowly as you start to make your own independent decisions, you become more sure of who you are, become more sure of where you're going. And naturally that also affects you, that also helps you to kind of, overcome certain insecurities, about what other people would think, what your parents would think. And this is what I advise a lot of youth as well. Have empathy for how your parents feel. Don't just shut them down. Have empathy, know that they change your diapers. So you better well have a bit of respect for them. But when you sit down and have an honest conversation with them and let them know these are my desires, these are why I feel that it's worthwhile to pursue it. They may not agree initially, but when they see your desire and your heart for it, right, they will they may not support you fully, lah, but they will understand and they'll let you do it. And along the way, like in Ray's journey, right, I mean, I know her parents as well, right? Her parents shifted because they saw the certainty in her. They saw that identity in her. And along, just recently she graduated, right? And your parents were, completely changed. And they're so supportive of you going into doing your own thing because you're happy. And they see your growth and they see your happiness, they'll come back and you will be happy. But the process is a process that takes time and it takes a lot of effort. It's not gonna be an easy journey, but if you guys just stick to it, I'm sure you guys will really be like Ray, eventually having a good relationship. And understand that if you just follow your parents, right, and in your heart you want to do something, but you just follow your parents, you might end up just having more resentment in future towards them. You blame them for not for your unhappiness. It's just about communicating and being authentic to yourself. Ultimately, your relationships with your parents will also improve. Yeah. Okay. So thanks so much, right, Ray, for sharing your personal story.
Yeah. Communication
Um,
is key.
it's key, right? So let's
No problem.
transition a
I
little
support
bit.
that.
So
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to talk a little bit because I know this was a huge, kind of a small chapter in your life where you were kind of building your identity already. You were already in business. You were already speaking. You were emceeing, but there was a period where you had eczema, right? Where you
Mm.
had a very bad case of eczema to break out on your body, and that
Yeah.
kind of brought you back to a to that place where what are people thinking about me, and that you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So basically in year three, I think it was last year, July, about there. I came back from Korea and I just had this huge outbreak of eczema, literally all over my body,
Mm,
like from my head to my toe, quite literally, and my
right.
face as well, my neck, my back, my everywhere lah, basically. Um, and it was really like peeling skin, right? So it's like imagine like a sunburn but like 10 times worse. Okay lah, not too bad.
You told me it hurts
Yeah,
your
it really
skin.
hurts. I mean,
Yeah.
you can actually just yeah, so it's like peeling skin and it's very sting and it's itchy and painful, and when you move you can feel the pain and it's very dry. And I think the worst thing is also feeling terrible when you wake up because you want to get out of bed but it hurts.
Mm,
And you're also like seeping, when your skin, the top of the skin comes off, there's a little bit of water that will comes out, so like you're also seeping
mm,
water and all that kind of stuff.
okay.
Yeah. And my semester already started and I had to go to school, so for the whole I think 3/4 of my semester I was looking like a red lobster and I was also very swollen.
Mm,
Yeah. And I was still continuing to put makeup at the start because I didn't want to look terrible. Like I
mm,
guess it's just I knew what my identity was, but I also couldn't MC a lot because of my skin. So a little part of my identity was also taken away. Um, I did still continue to train though, so that was still good. But I think it's just the idea that how can I still speak to people if I look like that? Like I was just afraid that when I want to speak to new people, they would look at how I am looking at that point of time, like how I look at that point of time, and I guess think differently. I don't think that I don't like to use the word judge, because I don't think people would judge me for my condition, but it's more of just that I can't have that charm. Like I just thought that I wouldn't be able to have the same charm,
Sure.
right?
Got it.
The way that I speak to people, especially guys, I just always have this thinking that
Okay.
yeah, like in my head it's like, oh, guys look at your looks as well. So I feel like I don't know if I can ever take away that mentality.
Yeah, I think just to share, right? I mean, it's not
I
like we are
yeah,
perfect. It's not like we're sharing this, right? And then we have already overcome. It's always a constant process. Even for myself, like you can't say that my identity is completely like secure now. We all of us continue to get insecure. You told me about how you managed to overcome it. You want to share how you eventually just decided to go out there, and then when that mentality shifted, right? What was that response for you?
sure. So actually, I was just the reason why I just wanted to go and do things, right, is because I cannot imagine just staying in bed all the time. Like that's I'm just not that kind. I just want to go out and do stuff.
Mm,
So I still continued training. I still wanted to earn money. And when I go out there and I just expose myself to what I was already doing, even networking events and all that, I realized that yes, people did have that initial like I want to ask what's wrong with you, but it's okay. I think I would just not ask like that very puzzled
yeah,
look on your face.
yeah.
But that aside, I can have great conversations with people. Like in fact, I even went on a date when I was looking like that.
Hey,
That's
man, I
so
didn't even
funny.
know that.
Oh, I did. I mean, it wasn't really it's not really a date lah. I mean, it's just a guy that I did meet
Sure,
him
it's
on
not
a
really
I did meet him on a dating app, but in the end, that didn't feel like a date because he was really just like a pal. Yeah, like he didn't wasn't like interested or anything, and I also wasn't
mm,
interested in him. But it's just so funny. Like, oh my gosh, never in the world would I imagine myself to look at to look like at that
yeah,
condition and still be able to go out and meet
converse.
someone new
Yeah,
that is a guy. Okay,
okay.
literally that would never happen in
So
my
that
life.
was a huge like kind of barrier mindset kind of shift, like a win in a
Yeah,
way for you. Yeah,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
also
But
shared with me that like when you, and this is from your video, right? From I think so. Yeah, I watched a lot of the
yeah,
stuff. Okay, you said that when you yourself don't bother too much about it, when you yourself are not thinking too much about it, then that is reflected in the other person as well. And they kind of reflect back your emotion. Whereas if you're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking, right, that also kind of attracts that energy as well.
yeah. As in, just know that when you're talking to someone, people are usually more focused on the conversation anyways.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like you're not gonna take more than 2 seconds to think about how you look, unless
Okay.
and yeah, I mean honestly, like, there are better things to do. People have better things to do than that.
Okay.
So having that perspective really really helped me.
Good.
Yeah, and just don't surround yourself with people that judge people too much. I'm sure there are people out there that do that. Confirm that they
Mm.
only judge people in their looks. So just don't hang out with people like
So the
that.
environment's important as well, lah. Okay. Okay, we got to transition already into the part two, which is more owning your voice, right? And the work that you do now in communications. So you just graduated. Congrats, by the way. And right now
Thank
you're
you.
transitioning to being like a full-time coach and entrepreneur that's helping people to really own their voice. So talk to me about this. What does it mean to own your voice? Because how much time?
Okay, so owning your voice is definitely like more than just a physical voice. Like all
Mm,
of us have a voice, we can speak. But owning it, the word owning it, right, is really understanding your inner voice, right? And your inner voice really constitutes like your identity, your story, your message, your opinions, like what you stand for, what are
mm-hmm.
the things you're passionate about, your say, and all these things in your inner voice, right? Your philosophy, your beliefs, your values, everything like that. That is your inner voice,
Okay,
right? Then using your physical voice, that means the voice you use, your physical voice, to
sure.
speak in order to impact or inspire or create change in the way that you want.
Right.
So Kevin and I were doing this Mind Valley quest now by Lisa Nichols, right?
It's a
And Lisa
great
Nichols talks
cause.
about
Mm,
great cause. She talks about when you speak, you know, ask yourself how would you want people to think, feel, or act, right? Like, do you want them to think and have a different perspective after your speech, after you say something? Or do you want to, like, after you say something, they are actually motivated to act on
Yeah.
their desire or act on,
Yeah.
and create change themselves? Or do you want them to feel a certain, like, feeling in their heart
Yeah.
that, change their life afterward, change
Sure.
their perspective and how they view certain areas of their life? So for us to be able to do that, we need to understand what is our inner voice. We need to understand, like, what is the message we even want to go forth and speak in the first place.
Sure.
Which is why whenever I work with people, we always go straight to the why lah, right? That is talked about everywhere. Why do you even want to? How do you want to use your voice?
Yeah.
Why do you want to speak better?
Sure. And
So that's what I mean by owning your voice. Yeah.
okay, and just to add on, just to illuminate that a little bit, I think that is so important. I really like the way you position it, how owning your voice, because that's you. That reminds me of you. You overcome all the insecurities, and in the past, you couldn't really say that you owned your voice because, like you said, you're not sure who you were. But when you started to kind of take steps to forge your identity, right? When you take steps to overcome your insecurities, your struggles and your baggage and all your difficulties, right? All become part of who you are now, and you're
Yeah.
owning that voice and you come across authentically. And even in the course, it says that to communicate authentically, right? It's all about being transparent. Is that you have nothing to hide, nothing to defend, and you are
Mm.
just comfortable with both your brilliance and your breakdowns. You are comfortable with the highs of your life and also the
Yeah.
struggles they have gone through. And when you can authentically bring that out and share, right, that makes you a very powerful communicator. Because communication is not just about it's not just about being able to pitch, pause, pace, power, pronunciation. It's not just about gestures, right? That's just the outer part of it. But what makes a solid communicator, inspired communicator, is when they know who they are, they know their message, and they're very clear when they speak their message. You can sense it, you can feel it, and it makes people feel as if they want to do something as well. It inspires them to own
Mm.
their own voice, and that's
Yes.
what Ray is doing now, So I'm so happy for her.
Yeah. And this is something like what you mentioned just reminded me of something Simone, Simone Heng,
Yeah.
The ex DJ, and now she's also a coach right now. And she said this, which I thought was very true. If you're if you try to be safe, the way that you speak is like very vanilla, like you don't have much opinion, you want to always be neutral, people are not gonna listen to you.
Mm.
Yeah, because you won't be remembered, you won't really make a mark because you're just always like politically correct, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People will listen to you when, even if they don't agree with you, they at least listen. Like, oh,
Right.
okay, this person has an opinion,
You stand
this
for
person has
something, right?
yeah, stands for something. So you cannot just forever be in the safe zone. I think that the first step was asking myself, even just the daily questions of like, how do I feel about this? What do I think about this? And we don't ask ourselves that enough, honestly, right? Like you see an incident that happened out on the street. So what are your thoughts about this? You don't have to tell people your thoughts. You just think about it, journal it, or write it down, right?
Mm.
Because that is how you slowly realize and figure out what is it that you're passionate about. What is it that you stand for? I mean, this is how people slowly realize their passion for like mental health or like environment or whatever, right? So it is from these little moments that you start asking yourself these important questions of what do I think about this? How do I
Sure.
feel about this?
Yeah, and communication is something very universal. You don't need to be a public speaker to want to communicate well. Anything that you do requires good communication, and that stems from, owning your own voice, understanding who you are. Lah. So I think the work that you're doing is so amazing. And definitely do
Thank
check out
you.
Rhea. I'll put in a plug later on, lah. Give you a chance to promote yourself because you've been dying to do that. I'm just kidding. But yeah, okay, we gotta kind of wind down a little bit. Maybe talk to me about just as a communicator, apart from owning your voice, right? What can people do to overcome that fear? So it's a question from Instagram as well, like, how do you overcome the judgment of doing something different? Different, yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect question for me because that's exactly what happened to me like 2, 3 years ago, right? Like even from my Instagram feed, because back then when I was still promoting for a club, like of course a lot of my social media posts navigate just was mainly of like pictures of me clubbing and things like that, social pictures. So when I went into a personal development space and I wanted to go into entrepreneurship and coaching like what I'm doing now, of course the nature of my post also changes,
Very
and
different.
just
Yeah.
the way I speak, how I act, how I dress,
Mm.
right? I used to think that black tights is considered formal pants. So every single aspect changes.
Mm.
I have to say that it's a gradual process, right? So it's like 2 years of slowly changing.
Mm.
But at the start, okay, I'm just gonna think back of me back then 2 years ago. Did I have fear of judgment? Yes. How did I deal with it? Number one, I am someone that gets energy from people. You gotta know yourself. So to me, if I want to reduce that fear of judgment, then I make that what actually helped me a lot was being around people that was also chasing a similar goal, that were
Mm.
also, experiencing similar fear of judgment issues. And that becomes my new normal. So my new
Sure.
normal becomes dressing a certain way, speaking in a certain way, chasing goals, you know, like being more aware of, your likes and dislikes
Yep.
and being more aware of where you're going towards. And because that's my new normal, I slowly become I slowly think less of what the other side is,
Sure.
which is,
Makes
only focus on your career, only focus on school, only focus on friends, whatever. Okay.
okay.
So the first thing would be surround yourself with people that understand exactly what you're going through.
Yep.
Okay, so that there's that layer of support. I think that's one main thing, right? That's really the main thing. And
Okay.
then if I want to give a practical tip, it would be that even on social media, right? When you want to change, um, you can't change just like overnight, you know? You gotta give people time to slowly like realize like, oh, Ray is this person. Okay. And I know that I'm saying it's like, oh, you wanna see how people look at you, but ultimately if you wanna use social media as a way to promote what you do, it is necessary. So what I did was I slowly dropped little hints that I'm doing something new, right?
Mm.
So it could be an Insta story of me reading a book on personal development, slowly. And then now I'm like producing content about personal development,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Sure.
back then, if 2 years ago I did that change overnight and I suddenly put a video on fear of failure, people will be
Mm.
like, who's this girl? Like, has she failed in anything before? Right?
Right.
So you
It's also
post,
understanding the context of the environment and the space, right? It's not that you don't want to judge it. It's not that you care about what other people think. In some sense that, okay, you're not defined by other people, but in the same sense, you also got to be respectful of how other people would perceive you because, that's an important part in business as well.
yeah.
Mm.
So ultimately, fear of judgment is really like a internal mindset thing because it takes that decision to go out of your comfort zone and look at your goal. I think the best reply would be to be very sure of why do you want to make that change and what is your goal.
Okay.
Because if you keep your eyes on it, then it doesn't matter what people do around you. You will always keep your eyes on it, right? So I've been watching this Korean drama called Itaewon Class, and it's brilliant drama. I'm not. I mean, I don't want to promote Netflix or anything, but that's really a brilliant drama. So
Mm.
if any of y'all watch Netflix and you're watching all the other not so good stuff, right? Watch Itaewon Class because it at least teaches you something.
Okay, we're gonna wind down. So we're just gonna close up with a surprise segment. Okay, I've named this segment Raeflections. So I'm gonna ask her, we're parting on good brain.
Oh, oh
So I'm
my
gonna
gosh! I
ask
should change
her
my highlights.
10. I'm gonna ask you 10 quick fire questions. You gotta answer them within 15 seconds. Okay. Okay, ready?
Yeah,
Okay. What is your greatest asset?
my looks. No, I'm kidding.
After all that we have discussed.
Okay, wait. Sorry, it has to be my voice and my brain, my mind.
Greatest is singular. Okay, never mind,
I'm
fine.
sorry, I just have to choose
Okay.
two. I don't play favorites.
Yeah, sure. Your greatest fear.
My greatest fear is leaving the world without owning my voice.
What's the
It's true.
happiest moment in your life thus far?
Okay, happiest moment has to be when um I was singing at an event and it
Okay.
was a huge event with like thousands of people. It was Outbox Singapore. and my whole family came, and my parents, they were so proud of me. They're like just like taking their
Love it.
iPhone camera, they filmed the whole entire thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
love
that
it.
was
Fourth
very special.
question. What's the most important trait in speaking?
Authenticity.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
In 3 words, I'm cute. I'm kidding.
Sure. His favorite movie.
Star is Born.
Really? Why?
Because the story, it's about someone that thought that she wasn't gonna make it, and she made it. And she made it with resilience and really just owning her voice,
Okay.
right?
Love it. Best advice you have ever received.
Don't live for anybody else but yourself.
A person that inspires you.
Lisa Nichols.
Okay. The last question. What's the advice you have for your 16-year-old self?
Don't dye your hair blonde because it takes a lot of maintenance.
Okay, with that, we've come to the end of Raeflections. Ray, it's a privilege to have you on this podcast and such a wonderful conversation with you. Just the last question. All right, what does resilience mean to you?
Resilience is always going forward towards your goals, even if everybody else tells you you're not going to make it.
Okay, nice. And where can people find you, Ray?
Right. People can find me on Ray Matrix on Instagram. Don't ask me why it's Matrix. I didn't even watch the show The Matrix. Yeah, you can find me there, and basically all my YouTube and my Spotify links are on there as well.
Sure. Fridays with
Create
Ray. Check it out on
Yes, and
Spotify, right? If you're on Spotify, check out Fridays with Ray. Ray has her own podcast as well. Hopefully I'll be on there once a
soon.
day. Yes, I believe we have come to the end of the podcast. Definitely look forward to the next podcast. You're gonna have another special guest coming on. I think Ray knows who he is. He's a speaker that I work with who is visually impaired. So he lost his sight when he was 19 years old, but he managed to overcome it and now he's a Paralympian. Alright, so do look out for that. And yes, stay safe, stay resilient, and we'll see you guys next time. Say bye, Ray.
Bye.
Alright, bye guys. See y'all.